Good morning, everyone in Hungary and in Europe, and good afternoon to everyone in Japan. This is IFAT, Institute of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Hungary, Budapest. My name is Gergely Salát, and I'm a Senior Research Fellow at IFAT. And today's event is entitled Japan's Asian Competitors, China, South Korea, in the Visegrad countries. And we have four distinguished speakers today. The first one will be Bonji Ohara, who's a senior fellow at the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, our old partner with IFAT. Then we have Michito Tsuruoka, associate professor from the Faculty of Policy Management at Keio University. We have Dávid Szabó, who's the founder of the Trimarium Geostrategic Institute. And we have Ivana Karásková, who is a Somebody just muted me, sorry. So today's event is about East Asian countries active in the Visegrad 4 countries, except for Japan. This event is part of a series about Japan's presence in this region. But this event is special because we are not talking about Japan, we are talking about other countries' present trade, investment, and economic presence in the Eastern European region, actually in the V4 countries. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Professor Bonji Ohara from Sasakawa Peace Foundation.
Thank you very much. And can I share the my display?
1 minute. One moment, please. Now you can do it, I think.
Okay. I'd like to introduce my idea about the economic activities of China and Republic of Korea, South Korea. Now, can you my display? And I had a 3 years project to analyze Chinese foreign economic aid and also investment to the foreign countries. Now, you can see the Chinese economic activities, how strategic. China is the investing in let's say traffic infrastructures and also the energy concern facilities. The radius of the each circle indicate the size of the amount of investment. I'm sorry, I've not yet finished the those translation to the English. So it is now the just image of the Chinese development of the its economic foreign economic activities. I like to show another slide because it is the geographic development. But China is also developing the not only the geographic domain and also in the cyber domains. So China now they put priority on the digital economy because China believe, and we also understand the digital economy include IoT, Internet of Things, like the autonomous driving and also remote surgical operation, etc., etc. But in those business, then we need to use the network and also the information on the network. And, China is very strategically develop the its superiority in their future business. China is launching many satellites to establish the network in the outer space by the many number of the satellites. And also China is constructing the submarine cable. China has the already made some construction of the about 10% of the total length of the whole submarine cable now. So of course, China is investing to the Central European countries, but it is a part of the Chinese strategy. So we need to understand Chinese investment and also the activities, foreign aid, not only in the country, but also we need to look at the global activities. And also China has already finished establishment of the Chinese GPS Beidou system, and China will make the fusion with the artificial intelligence AI, and also make the Beidou system to have the ubiquity. Then it will be not only the GPS and to be the integrated system. So those kind of system will be the foundation or base of the future business. So and also at the same time, China is investing to the urban traffic system and also the railroad system, and also the mobile phones and communication network, include the base stations and relays, and also application on the network. So the China is trying to priority on the network infrastructures and also the applications, and also the information itself on the network. So it will provide China the superiority in the future business. And not only the business itself, China is trying to internationalization of the renminbi, Chinese currency, and by the digitalization of renminbi, and also establish the what I say cross-border interbank payment system, SIPS. Then it is a different system from the SWIFT. Now the we using when need to we need the cross-border payment. The ships does not have to use the SWIFT system, and can make cross-border payment by renminbi. And this system is very convenient. Then many countries and also the banks in the different countries are joining the SIPS. So we need to understand the Chinese economic activities in the Central Europe as a part of the Chinese global strategy. About the ROK, South Korea, on February 16 this year, in South Korea and Visegrad 4 had a second economic and trade forum, and the Korea Chamber of the Commerce and Industry and the Ministry of Trade, they were joining the forum. In the forum, the both sides reached the agreement about the technology concerns climate change cooperation in the technology concern climate change, like the renewable energy and carbon neutrality. We can see the situation. Then South Korea had the strong support by the South Korean government, and South Korean investment into the V4 will make the balance out the U.S.-China rivalry because South Korea is not a major power as same as Japan and also the Visegrad 4 countries. And I believe the cooperation between middle power democracies must be good to avoid the what I say rely on a specific country too much, and keep the its own economic activity independent. And South Korea, this means the South Korea as a rival of Japan in the Visegrad Central Europe, but not politically in the business. And as I said, there is a strong backup by the South Korean government to the South Korean business or the economic activity in the Central Europe. On the contrary, in Japanese business, the private companies lead those kind of businesses in foreign countries. But still, the fair business competition between Japan and ROK has good influence on the Visegrad 4, because Visegrad 4 has the options to choose the contract in a country which the Central Europe need to want to cooperate, and this kind of competition must be good in economically, and also those kind of competition will let's say good to the market economy in the Central Europe. So I believe the Japan and South Korea still, although the type of business and character are different, but South Korean business development is also good to the Central Europe and also the good to Japan, because we can compete the South Korean business with the what I say fair rules. So I think business and also the ROK business economic activity a little bit different, and but still the having many options is always good. So I think the many countries are interested in the business in the Central Europe must be good, not only to the Central European countries, but also the all market economic countries and also their democracies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ohara. Thank you. I would like to ask the participants to raise their questions in the Q&A window at the bottom of their screen, because after this short presentation at the beginning of this event, we will have a discussion, hopefully a very lively discussion about all these interesting topics. And we would also like the participants, the audience, to take part in this discussion. So you can raise your questions either in the Q&A window, or you can also write it in the chat window if you have if you prefer that one. Now, I would like to pass the floor to Professor Michito Tsuruoka, who's an associate professor at Keio University. Please, Professor Tsuruoka, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation. I've been very much looking forward to this occasion, and so great to talk to you today. Yes, I understand that as the moderator said at the beginning, that today's discussion is not quite about Japan per se, but in terms of putting our discussions on China and other countries in V4 countries in a broader context, and also why and how Japan looks at the situation. I think let me say a few words on the meaning of V4 in Japan's thinking first. I think one of the biggest factors that influences Japan's general views on Europe is Brexit. So because of Brexit, so Japan is in a process of rebalancing its policy toward Europe, because before Brexit, it had long been Japan's practice of talking to London before talking to Brussels. So the going to Brussels via London, and that sort of a practice had been there. So in that sense, London was the gateway to the EU for Japan for many, many years. And this is no longer possible. So that is why Tokyo is in the process of finding and cultivating new gateways to the EU. And in that context, of course, France or Germany or these big powers are on top of the list of possible alternative gateways for Japan. But at the same time, given the diverse nature of the EU, so people in Tokyo are now becoming more interested in developing relations with other countries, meaning other than Germany or France or these traditional big powers in Europe. And that, of course, in that context, including the V4 countries, so Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia. And I think it's a really interesting time for Japanese to think about V4 countries, thanks to Brexit. Of course, we didn't want to see Brexit happening, but this is just a reality. So thanks to Brexit, now we can have a new look at Europe and the role of the weight of Central and Eastern European countries in Japan's policy toward Europe has increased quite a lot. So that's I think one of the context, and also another important thing, the basic thing in Japan's approach to Europe is that we want to see a EU united in its foreign policy. Regarding China, of course, or regarding other policies as well. So we want to see the EU united European voice, a single European voice, because it's in Europe's interest, first and foremost, that's quite true. But at the same time, it's in Japan's interest as well. So the stronger Europe and the single voice of Europe in international issues, of course, including Asia-Pacific issues, including China, that is very much we expect to see from Europe. So I think that position is quite clear. So that is why the various attempts by various countries to undermine EU unity, it's something that we are very much concerned about. So there are some countries, first and foremost, perhaps Russia, but at the same time, China has been trying to undermine EU consensus or EU unity in various policy areas. So for example, the 17+1, the interest in Japan in the 17+1 framework has increased quite a lot over the past several years. Perhaps some people argue that you don't need to be concerned too much about it because the framework lacks substance. Yes, that may be quite true, but still, for China, it is a really interesting, convenient framework to, quite frankly, to divide EU unity. So because of that, we are very much concerned about the effect and consequences of 17+1. And it's not only 17+1. The China has been trying to approach individual countries for the purpose of preventing EU unity on various issues like South China Sea, for example. So I remember that several years ago, EU had a very difficult time coming up with a joint statement on South China Sea. So there are several countries which try to prevent joint statement, and that situation, I think, still continues. And also quite recently, as far as I understand that, the EU came to a consensus on imposing human rights sanctions against China on Xinjiang issues. But there are some reports that a couple of countries tried to prevent the consensus from getting formed. So I don't know what was happening behind the closed doors, but it's quite worrying that some countries actively trying to prevent EU consensus in this regard. So these are the sort of attempts by other countries, mainly China, but of course Russia as well. So these are the activities that try to prevent EU unity, and that is something that, from a Japanese perspective, is quite worrying. And another sort of a source of concern has to do with what is called coercive economic measures. So economic bullying or economic coercion. That is something that we are getting more worried, concerned, because the China has been imposing various economic coercive measures in many countries, in many parts of the world. And Japan has its own experience of being targeted by China's de facto export ban of rare earth 10 years ago. And now Australia is very much suffering from China's import ban on wine and other things. And some European countries have been targeted as well, like Norway's salmon was targeted. And so what is common about these Chinese activities is that China puts economic measures for the purpose of changing policies of other countries in other fields. So they're using economic means for political purposes, in short. It's something that we are seeing. So how we could counter, how we could address, this is I think a quite important new topic for the EU and Japan to think about. So of course, there's no clear answer or clear solution to this, but I think the first step will need to be more exchange of information about what is taking place and what China is doing vis-a-vis various other countries, Japan, European countries, Australia, and these like-minded countries. And so this is a quite important topic. And just earlier today, we saw the US-China and exchanges in Anchorage in Alaska between foreign ministers and national security advisor was there as well. And in an opening statement, Secretary Blinken also included this economic coercion as one of the topics for the two countries, the US and China, to discuss. And in the American mind, the Australian issue, the China-Australia conflict is very much in their mind. So this is now becoming a bigger issue. And I very much believe that the EU and Japan should talk more about this and thinking about what we could do together. And finally, let me say a few words on the connectivity issue, connectivity between the EU and Asia. So the Japan and the European Union launched what is called Connectivity Partnership back in September 2019. but I'm afraid that not many things have been taking place, perhaps mainly because of COVID. But I think now it's time to revitalize this partnership and start doing concrete things. And one of the interesting areas is the Western Balkans, actually. So that's, of course, the EU is very much committed and interested in, and I think it's geographically close to V4 countries as well. So I believe that there could be an interesting opportunity for Japan and V4 countries do together in the Western Balkans, and also because of the fact that the Chinese have been quite active in expanding its influence and activities in the Western Balkan countries, particularly Serbia. So the vaccine diplomacy has been there as well, and also the Chinese involvement in critical infrastructure projects as well, including transports and ports. And so the Western Balkans, I think, is an interesting area for the EU and Japan to think about, particularly given the Chinese presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tsuruoka Sensei. I would like to remind the audience again that if you have any questions, then just write it in the Q&A session, and at the end of the presentation, I will raise those questions to the attendees. And now I would like to pass the floor to Dávid Szabó, who's the founder of Trimarium Geostrategic Institute. Please, for your share with us your comments and views.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Welcome, everybody. Special greetings. Good evening for those from reporting from Japan, and everyone in the audience. If you don't mind, I would just very briefly reflect on two thoughts by Professor Tsuruoka. One is regarding Japan's preference for a unified EU foreign policy, or a common foreign policy position by the European Union. It is a very delicate matter here within the European Union, because indeed consensual decision-making in EU foreign policy, it is a very, very hard, technically and substantially hard thing to do. And exactly any single member state can raise a hand or raise a veto against the other 26, but there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for why qualified majority decision making in EU foreign policy is such a hot topic now. And I think, although it's not so much reflected right now because of the pandemic situation on the surface, but in the institutional framework and in the intergovernmental structures of the European Union, it's one of the major underground battles that is going on to enforce QMV, qualified majority vote in foreign policy matters. But again, I just feel that it has to do a bit more with substance than with technical matters. It's a very sensitive question for many countries, and lately I can see on the example of Hungary, or sometimes Poland, but mostly Hungary, that lately the European Union's bigger member states and sometimes the EU foreign policy decision making from the Commission side did not make steps to encourage or to raise trust that a QMV decision making would be favorable and our interest would be taken into consideration. But I think what the professor made a very, very valid point, because this is exactly a key issue in the future of Japan European Union relations. And when there's one more issue here, where there's a debate about whether the European Union, when it raises a voice in international global matters, shall it do it every time when it feels that the values that it proclaims have been violated, or shall it do it when it feels that it matters or it can make a difference? And here again, I just put on the table, there's a conceptual difference between so-called realist globalists who say you shouldn't open your mouth unless it matters, unless you can make a difference, and empty statements, the shelf is full of empty statements. While others say that if you proclaim a value-based community and a values-based foreign policy, then you have to exactly step up and speak up every time when you experience something that you don't like. And a last thought about economic coercion, which is something that we experience from, as you said, from China in various cases in the global arena. We see it from other powers as well. But also I have to raise the question, the European Union itself and its leading power, Germany, it faces such a question also from the United States side in terms of the Nord Stream 2 project, whereby we very much see, or the Huawei enrollment, 5G enrollment project, where we see that there is power, which is our closest ally in all terms, economic, political, security terms, which is not shy to use its own economic coercion methods, reflecting back to Professor Ohara's presentation, for example, by blocking access for companies participating in certain projects to the America-backed or America-based financial infrastructures, to which maybe I think it's partly a Chinese response that they are trying to build their own digital payments infrastructure and other physical and digital infrastructures. So I think here it is also a question of I don't like the word rules-based world order, but about how the rules or how the norms of the international system are applied and whether they are applied equally to all the powers, or it is a selective process. And just coming back to the topic of today's meeting, I think it's very important to see that in the past 1 to 5 years, there were several very influential studies coming out which examined long-term historical processes in Europe, in the Western world mostly, but also now we have data on Central and Eastern Europe over long-term economic growth, social and economic criteria developing. And all these long-term surveys or long-term research projects point in the direction that there is and has not been in the past 100 years real convergence between the Central Eastern European region, including the Visegrad 4 countries, and Western European counterparts. There have been fluctuations in these data sets, but the main conclusion is that we are not getting closer to Western Europe in certain ways, in life standards, income, human development, and so on. And it very much seems so that it's not the product of the past 10, 20, or 30 years, it's the product of much earlier historical developments. And here, why I introduce the topic this way, here is one of the, I think, the key to the region's socio-economic political development, which is a long-term scarcity of capital, domestic capital in this region, which is characteristic even for the Czech Republic, which is much, much better equipped with capital than Hungary or Poland itself. Yet it is the common program of the whole region. And the lack of capital, and by that I mean material capital, but also we have the problem of the human capital because of the education system and various brain drain and various other factors. But the lack of capital leads us to certain constraints in our economic and political social developments. And these constraints regard two main areas. One is technology-intensive investments. So to be competitive in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years, heavy investments need to be made in technology-intensive sectors right now. And for that, we have certain external sources like European Union funding. We have foreign direct investment from various countries. And this is where I think Japan and South Korea both are doing pretty well in the region and have been doing pretty well in the past 30 years. So here, obviously, they have an advantage right now, especially in the automotive and electronic sector. But in order to keep up with this advantage compared to the competitor, China, more needs to be done. There are encouraging tendencies. For example, from South Korea's side, we see that for Hungary, for the whole region, the automotive sector, the automotive industry is a key industry, a big part of our economic output, but also of our future plans. And here, e-mobility and autonomous vehicles, but I think e-mobility is the technology right now, the technological path right now, which the automotive industry have chosen or have been forced to choose. And here we see that battery power plants, various development projects. For example, in Hungary, next to Zalaegerszeg, there's this autonomous and electric vehicle testing facility where any car manufacturer, car maker, or car parts manufacturer can join and do basically a very advanced testing at a very advanced environment. So these sort of investments, I think, are key. E-mobility, and we furthermore said the 5G technology, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. These are key sectors where more participation, or where the next phase of participation is needed. By the way, both South Korea and Japan are doing very well in the region. They are key foreign direct investors, among the top 3 investors or top 5 foreign direct investments outside of the European Union in all the 4 countries. So I think there's an established position which needs to be stepped up and basically modernized to the next level of technological development. And the other side of the same coin, lack of capital, is lack of infrastructure, building connectivity, as Professor Ohara said, building connectivity, and also Professor Tsuruoka, building connectivity is a key factor in our future development. And therefore it is visible that the Visegrad region is trying to invite capital, invite various interests from all over the globe, not only from the European Union, to invest into this sort of infrastructure. Let it be natural gas pipelines, where Russia is still an important player, but we also managed to include the United States and other key players in the regional market, to high-speed railway, cargo transportation, and road constructions. I think here China is obviously right now building a competitive edge, and that is something where Japan, as a competitor, based on the title of today's event, but Japan as a competitor could definitely join. And I think in the Western Balkans, anywhere else, because we know South Korea is partnering with the Visegrad 4 in the Eastern Partnership countries. So on this periphery of the European Union, where the V4 countries are most active in foreign policy, which is the Eastern Partnership and the Eastern Neighborhood and the Western Balkans regions, there is room for infrastructure development. I think there is, Japan owns technology and has technology that is suitable. The question is whether we could put together the puzzle in this way. And meanwhile, of course, we need to take into account that time factor shows that China is putting already down its own development projects, including the Budapest-Belgrade, potentially Thessaloniki railway construction, or highways and bridges in Montenegro or Serbia, which means time is ticking, and the projects have been, I think, way below the ambition level so far. So again, investment in technology, investment in infrastructure that is also favorable for Japan would be the way to step up with competitors in a benevolent way. And I don't mean that Central and Eastern Europe should be a focus of Japan, South Korea, China, great power competition. I don't think it is. It's definitely necessary, and our region is already subject to great power competition in other ways. And the final thought: there's a big difference between the two competitors, or even actually Japan and South Korea on one side and China on the other side. For the region's countries, which did not have very rich history in the past 500 years of an actual autonomous, self-governing, sovereign statehood, nationhood, it is always important to look at the country, the major power that provides us with the strongest security guarantee, the United States, and whereby Japan and South Korea belong to, in various ways, belong to the United States-led organizations, or United States-initiated organizations, basically the infrastructure of the Western world. China does not. And in this sense, Japan and South Korea, when they want to do something in the region, when there's economic interest or political interest to do something, it is a much easier sell than for the People's Republic of China to do the same sort of projects, because in your case, there's much less objection from Washington, DC than in the case of China. So basically, you should also capitalize on the momentum of being not hostile, or not being put in the hostile books of the Western world or of the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dávid Szabó. And now I would like to pass the floor to Ivana Karásková from Prague, from the Institute of from the Association of International Affairs. Please, Ivana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gergely. And thank you, IFAT, for having me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are connecting from Europe, and good afternoon to those of you who are connecting from Asia. Well, I was thinking about whether I should react on everything which was said here, which is really fascinating, but then I probably will take a different approach. I would like to ground the discussion a little bit more really to the V4 region and focus specifically on China in Czech Republic, not only because it's such a sexy topic, but because it's one of the most problematic investors here we have. So in comparison, and I will put it a little bit into comparison towards Japanese and Korean investors, and also talk about what kind of challenges and opportunities also the whole experience the Czech Republic had with Chinese investors, where it actually puts Japan and where it puts South Korea. So I would like to start by saying that while China was present historically in the region, the real push came really only after 2000s with the increased investment into Hungary, even preceding 17+1 format, and also the decision by the Polish side to let Chinese investors into building the roads, invite the Kovac company. But the greater push, real push in visibility came only with the inception of 17+1, by then 16+1 in 2012, 2013. Well, economy-wise, the level of Chinese influence, especially in EU member states, including the V4 countries, is relatively small. Because when we look at numbers, we'll see that about 2% of Chinese FDI landed in whole Central and Eastern Europe. So in comparison, 98% of Chinese investment, which targeted Europe, basically landed in other countries. And starting with Germany, starting with the UK, when the UK was part of the EU, Italy, Spain, basically France, these countries. So in terms of numbers, there are many more words from the Chinese side than the actual deeds. And even if we look at the region of Central and Eastern Europe, most of those FDIs were basically absorbed by V4 countries because they are the closest to Western European markets, because they provide skillful yet still cheap labor. And most of the investment went into the form of mergers and acquisitions. So very few of these investments actually led to brownfield investment, creation of jobs, and so on. But we are still interesting for China because we are part of German supply chains. Essentially, we are part of German economy. And we do have skilled labor, and we do provide still quite, in comparison, cheap labor. But when China came to this region, it didn't understand how it actually works. And here, to be absolutely objective and to be absolutely fair, it made a couple of mistakes which were made by the previous Asian investors as well. So it, for example, didn't understand that we actually do have some kind of regulations. We actually do have labor standards. We do have environmental standards. And on top of that, we have EU standards. So it was quite a difficult environment for the Chinese investors, and a number of them actually failed in this regard. So economy-wise, there is not so much of a, let's say, hoo-ha or that of much of a big boom from the Chinese side. But politically-wise, we are talking completely different story. What has been flying under the radar, and we at the China Observers in Central and Eastern Europe, which I lead, the Choice platform, we published a book last year where we detailed how the 17+1 basically evolved, and we did an audit of bilateral relations. The publication is called Empty Shell No More, and I think it basically summarizes the main findings, and that's that 17+1 is not an empty shell. Economically wise, perhaps, but politically wise, there is a lot of things going really below the radar of the annual summits of the heads of the states or the heads of the governments. So China invested a lot into party-to-party relations using the 17+1 format. And here I would like to echo what Professor Tsuruoka said, that 17+1 is an interesting platform for China to pursue its goals and interests in this region. China also invested heavily into paradiplomacy, so the sub-governmental levels of relationship with the municipalities, with the regions, with the counties, and so on. And it invested heavily into people-to-people relations, including investments into media, acquisitions of media, and such. So I would argue here that 17+1 has been devised by China for certain reasons, and not necessarily economic ones, but political ones as well. And we are valuable members or valuable contacts because we are members of the bigger organizations such as EU, such as NATO, and so on. But let's focus a little bit more closer, put it even to the grounder level of China and China's entrance to the Czech Republic and the whole experience we have with China in Czech Republic. Well, it came with a big fanfare through mostly the seemingly private company CEFC in 2015. And most interestingly, it created its presence because of the big political players of the local origin. So it was mostly presented to the Czech public by the Czech president Zeman, and also by political elites who saw the opportunity, to diversify countries' relations after the global financial crisis. As I said, we are essentially part of the German economy. So it made sense to also try to diversify and also not to put the eggs into one single basket, but also due to lobby of economic interest groups, which wanted to have greater access to Chinese market and also wanted to have some kind of side deals regarding the Chinese investment in the Czech Republic. So in comparison to Japan and South Korea, China was a relative newcomer. Both other countries were traditionally here even before China got so much interested. And to give you some numbers, Japan currently is the second biggest investor in Czechia and has been between 1993 to 2019. It invested altogether more than $4 billion US dollars to the Czech economy. There's also 266 Japanese companies who employ more than 50,000 people, and so on. In terms of Korea, the investment is actually lower, but still it's the fourth biggest investor since 1993 after Germany, Japan, and the US. And also the Taiwanese investment, which is not so much covered here, is actually bigger in terms of numbers, or has been bigger in terms of numbers than the Chinese one originally. So based on this, the image of both China and Korea was and is still very positive. So in 2018, the big Chinese investment, which came, the company which came in 2015, actually turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, to be a fraud. And they had to be rescued and bailed out by the Chinese state company CITIC. And this experience, I would argue, inoculated a part of the Czech elites to be much more cautious, seeking relationship with China. Also, the whole sell out to China from the Czech political elites was criticized a lot. So that also didn't help in terms of seeing China positively in this region. So I would argue here that this really inoculated the Czech political elites, but it also inoculated the Czech business. So everybody, I would argue, is much more cautious about doing business with Chinese investors because of the CEFC scandal. Quite interestingly, in 2015, 2016, Japanese diplomats were complaining that there is a lot of attention paid to China, and the traditional investors who have been here, who created a number of jobs, they never made it to media. So they were felt that they were not treated properly. But on the other hand, there is no major scandal connected to Japanese or Korean investors. So the strange situation really was that more attention was paid to less significant investor. How the whole bad experience with China affects Japan and South Korea in the Czech Republic and in the broader region, there are some opportunities and challenges posed by this experience. On one hand, it reflects positively on both investors because they benefited from being put into comparison to Chinese investment and to Chinese political behavior in this region. But on the other hand, they were not able to seize the opportunity, really, perhaps because there is not so much of space for Japan and Korean activities, because perhaps there is not so much of interest of Japan and South Korea to invest more on top of what was already invested here. On the other hand, also, the Czech Republic starts to be much more interested again towards the diversification of relationship, especially based on this experience with the Chinese investors. So there is a window of opportunity to work more with Japan, to work more with South Korea, to work more with India, and so on. And from the other perspective, there is also an opportunity to influence EU through the Czech Republic. And I need to elaborate on that because otherwise it would sound really strange. What I meant here is that Czech Republic is going to hold a presidency in the second half of 2022. And the discussions already started about which countries the EU should look more closely to, and including during the Czech presidency. And it's a huge opportunity for Japan, South Korea, India, and other Asian democracies to present itself and to seek greater and closer relationship with the EU, not only in the basis of economy, but also politically. Well, the negative experience with China, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on your perspective, also led to the countries in the region towards adopting more mechanisms which would shield them from unwanted investment. And here, what I have in mind is the investment screening mechanisms. Well, we can say that it's quite a good mechanism for blocking untrusted vendors, untrusted investment going into strategic sectors, but it's also a political tool. So if we can imagine that there would be a change in the government towards having right-wing or, to have extreme right or extreme left parties in the government, quite easily used and abused also towards investors, which are, let's say, non-problematic economically or politically, but they may be problematic for the incoming government for different reasons. It also led towards accepting or signing the Clean Networks initiatives for exclusion of companies from non-democratic countries. And also it led to various other measures, such as the talks on exclusion of Chinese investors from the critical infrastructure, from building the nuclear power plant. So on one hand, there was a positive development. On the other hand, there were also more of the legal instruments which have greater impact on all the other investors from non-EU countries than just China. I will stop here and I would be happy to answer anything you can have in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivana. Now I would like to ask the panelists if you would like to reflect on any of the other comments or presentations. Professor Ohara, were you nodding? Or?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity. And yes, I like to introduce the investment in the emerging technology domains. And maybe you've already understood the what I say. We had Quad conference between Japan, United States, Australia, and India. And Quad conference decided to establish the 3 working groups. First one is vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine. And second, the emerging technology. And the third was the climate change. And those 3 domains, which China wanted to, play a leading role to solve the problems, and also the to grip the technology to get superiority in their future business. The Quad did not mention about the China because we don't have to consider how to defeat China, but we need to strengthen our own capability about the technologies, and also increase the economic power. So the in the EU and Central Europe, Visegrad 4 countries, it is the same. We can cooperate to develop the our capabilities and the in the emerging technologies domains. So it will help us to avoid the relying the specific country too much. And, we also can develop the our own network-based business. So it must be good for the all of us to compete in the business sector. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? No, all of you implied in your presentation that economic relations between Japan, China, Korea, and the V4 countries are not just economic relations, but they are highly political. Can you point out the specialties about the relationship between the state and the economic actor, the business actors in these countries? You all mentioned economic coercion China is supposed to be doing. But is there anything similar that Japan and South Korea can do with its own companies? And is it true that Chinese companies and Chinese economic actors can simply act as something like the hands of the state? So can you point out the specialties between the state and the economic actors in these countries? Anyone?
Yes, can I?
Yeah.
As I said, I had a project to analyze the Chinese foreign economic activities, but I could not define the Chinese foreign economic activities. All of the activities are coercive. We can see the situation that there is a peak of the FDI to the foreign countries in 2016. And after the 2017, the Chinese FDI to foreign countries started getting decrease because the China also learned the bad experience from the past investment and failure of the business in the foreign countries. So now the Chinese state-run bank is very strict to invest to the project in foreign countries. So and Chinese government also was not satisfied with the some of the project or investment to their foreign countries in the past. And Chinese state-run companies also need to get some result. Then because many of projects could not reach the success of or the economic success. And so those kind of state-run companies need to get right to operate the port or airport or something infrastructures. So we saw the situation as a coercive economic activities or investment. But something the Chinese economic activities also had the different aspect. So we need also China also invested to the foreign port. We saw the China might use the port as a military port. Navy ships will use would use those kind of port. But after that, we could not see the evidence the Chinese Navy use those kind of port. For example, India, Pakistan, then it was failed to let's say invite many ships. But also the Chinese Navy ships did not use the Guadalport such much, but they are using their Karachi. And Chinese submarine is also using Karachi. And so it is not such simple, I think. But China has the global strategy. It is not no doubt, but there are some success example, but some fail to reach the goal. So from now on, the China, based on the past experience, then what I say, restart the what I say, economic activities to seize the future business. So we need to watch on the Chinese business and also the political background, I think. Thank you.
And what about the other actors, South Korea and Japan? Ivana?
I wanted actually to talk a little bit about China still. So sorry for not responding to exactly your question, but I would like to link it to what Professor Ohara was saying. I think that watching China to be either or, it's quite limiting because it forces us to put it into category. In terms of how the private companies are cooperating with the state companies, it's actually interlinked. It's quite difficult to dissect it and say it's always the hand of the state, or it's always just a private business with no links to the government. But with Xi Jinping and with the recent development, it seems more and more that the state is actually penetrating the private business, and it has legal means to penetrate it, legal means to actually force even the seemingly private companies to do what it wants it to do, not only domestically, but also in foreign countries. And there are numerous examples of that. So while I would caution towards seeing everything what Chinese companies are doing to be directed by the state, on the other hand, from the security perspective, there has to be caution on that this may actually happen. And basically any Chinese investor could be forced by its own state to behave in the interest of the Chinese state, not always as in the interest of the foreign government they reside in the country they reside to, or in the business interest. And regarding the retaliation, well, we have seen that. We have seen it in Norway, as Professor Tsuruoka was rightly mentioning. We have seen China linking business with political means. In Sweden, in Lithuania, when Lithuanian government met with Dalai Lama, they were punished for 2 years. And we have also seen it last year when China was threatening to punish the Czech Republic for the visit of the Czech Senate President Vystrčil to Taiwan. But what is quite interesting here is that in Central and Eastern Europe, there is not so much of the leverage China would have here, because in terms of the trade, we are not dependent on trade with China. So it gives Central and Eastern European countries more leeway to, let's say, disobey, if you want, China, and to act a little bit more proactively and even provoke if we want to provoke.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, and can I add something about Chinese security concept? President Xi Jinping raised the concept of the comprehensive national security system. It includes the economic security. Now, it means the China is using the economic activities as a part of the security operations. So it is usual in China, and China will use the everything, energy securities and also technology securities and information securities are all included into the comprehensive national security concept. So as I said, we need to watch on the what I say political intention, the backside of the behind the Chinese economic activities. But in the now the China also has the pure private companies like Alibaba, but Chinese Communist Party is not satisfied with the Alibaba because Communist Party does not want the pure private company to have too much powers. And state-run bank could not make good business in these years, but the branch company of Alibaba named Ant used the Alipay for the online cashing, online payment, then gather the huge amount of money rather than the state-run bank. And also, Communist Party could not allow the Alibaba to gather the data of the customers. So now the Chinese Communist Party decided to punish the Mr. Jack Ma, the top of the Alibaba. So Chinese pure private company is getting powerful, but also the Chinese government or Communist Party is trying to control all of the business sector in China. So there is a complicated situation in China. So we need to watch on the situation very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ohara. Now I would like to turn to the questions raised by the audience. Gábor Seprényi asked Professor Tsuruoka, but I would also like to raise this question to Ivana. How do you see the future of 17+1 cooperation? In the Japanese press, the focus of the reporting on the latest summit was that 6 countries were not represented at the highest level and Lithuania was withdrawn from it. So the general perception in Japan was that the 17+1 was losing steam and is becoming an empty shell. Do you agree with this analysis? So the question is for Professor Tsuruoka first, but as Ivana mentioned their publication called Empty Shell No More, which was actually published before the latest 17+1 summit. I would also like her to share her thoughts on the future of the 17+1 cooperation.
Oh, thank you very much. And actually, I fully agree to what the Ivana said about the 17+1 in her remarks. So yes, as for the economic side of the story, the benefit hasn't been quite big. So there is a substantial sense of disappointment. So, and that is why I think some countries are losing interest in the 17+1. So what this means is that the substance matters more than the framework itself. So that as long as there are benefits of being part of 17+1, this framework is going to continue. But if there is no substance, then it's just natural for Europeans to wonder whether it's a good idea to continue this framework or not. But on the scene from Beijing, yes, as long as can be used as a good and convenient and effective tool to approach individual Central and Eastern European countries for political purposes, then the political validity or the benefit is going to continue. But as a framework for economic cooperation or investment cooperation, then I think the general trend is that many Central and Eastern European countries are losing interest. So the momentum has sort of somewhat disappeared. But as a framework, as long as there are countries which find the framework still of benefit, then it is going to continue.
Thank you, Ivana.
Yeah, I'm going to think aloud here a little bit, because that's a question I have been posing to myself for quite some time. I wouldn't say that Lithuania left the 17+1. They decided not to participate anymore. And that's quite a difference, because the next government can, revive their interest and start participating again. So there is no membership to leave. You can just decide not to participate. And if Lithuania is leaving, or if it has left, it most likely is going to not result in just Lithuania leaving, but the other Baltic countries leaving too, or deciding not to participate too. Estonia has been already talking about that, and Latvia will most likely do what Estonia will do. So there could be a domino effect. Czech Republic also is contemplating that, not the current government, but we are going to have general election in October this year. So it may very well result into the parties which are strongly anti-17+1 format would decide not to participate as well. This would probably mean is, let's do some math. We have 17 countries, 12 of them EU member states. If 4 of them decide not to participate, you have 8 countries versus 5 Western Balkan and non-EU member countries within the format. China would mostly likely react with increased interest towards those who are left within the format. And it will take them one by one, because there is no who are left are not only countries in the Baltics, but it's EU countries. So the countries which had a tendency to ally their statements with the EU position, to consult with European Commission, to consult with European External Action Service. So a significant voice would be missing within the format, which helped to, and they used to be quite assertive, especially this year, which used to correct Chinese interests and Chinese injecting their ideas and their rhetorics. So I would be quite afraid regarding the increased interest of China in the format and how the countries will take it. And also I can imagine some countries trying to make most of it. Here I'm looking at Budapest. I'm also looking at the Czech President Zeman. And I'm afraid that they will overdo it. They will once again want to show that we are the allies of China, the best buddies they have in Europe. So there is definitely this danger. And as for the future, well, there are countries who are interested in cooperating in working within the format. Here are the Western Balkan countries, which don't have access to structural funds, which may see China, but also Russia and other parties outside of EU as quite beneficial donors or parts to cooperate with. So I don't see the death of the format, but it would be more and more difficult, I guess, to inject the language of EU into final documents and guidelines.
Thank you, Ivana. Now we have a question about Hungary's role in this whole V4 and China relations. It says, Hungary always say that their relationship with China is solely for economic purpose and their trade volume is much smaller than the Western European countries. However, they seem to try to block common statements in the EU whenever there are some terms which may concern China. Actually, Professor Tsuruoka implied that, but he didn't name the country. This may be due to the lack of recognition of China's real threat or of their behavior or position, which frequently changes. What do you think about this? So this is about Hungary. Maybe Dávid Szabó may answer it. I know he's not a politician, but maybe he knows Hungary's motivations best here.
Sure, thank you very much. I think it's a very good and honest question. I mean, it is concerning motivations. I think in my previous statement, I already implied that mostly I meant Budapest when I was talking about the realists in the European foreign policy debate, in terms of, I do not have any absolutely any doubt that Hungarian decision makers would underestimate the potential threats or challenges associated with a more robust Chinese involvement in Hungary or in the European Union economically and politically. But I have to say that that is also true for other external players, also true for players from inside the European Union. That's why I say, like, the European Union is a construction, it's a community of countries, it's an integration mechanism. It is in certain ways a state-like integration, but it is not it's not a state. So first and foremost, the Hungarian decision makers respond to their own voters, and in these terms, I think they are very realistic in their judging of the situation. When it comes to common EU positions, first of all, as I said, they are not common unless there are 27 countries behind them. So although we saw it from the Finnish presidency that they tried to override this rule when they presented the EU's point minus Hungary at an international forum, which created a very dangerous precedent and gave further caution for some of the countries not to go for a qualified majority decision making. It's not only Hungary's right or any other member state's right to block such a decision, but also is their right to think that if the European foreign policy will raise its voice in every single question that doesn't have a direct impact on its citizens or the European Union's position in the world, then it will absolutely dilute Europe's voice in the ocean of opinions in the world. And I think Hungary's position is that if you don't have an actual impact, you don't have means, you don't have also political consensus about projecting some power with your opinion, then it is just an opinion. And again, there is no need for the European Union to form an opinion in every single matter in the world, as it does not possess the power to underpin it, to back its opinion. And this is what I see as the underlining principle. But it is in no way, I in no way do underestimate the impact that or the mechanisms that the People's Republic of China is, as described by the previous speakers, is attaching to its economic advancement in the region. Again, we need to look at the real cost of things. Lately I heard it in many ways, and I see many ways that when we talk about the opposite directions, the question is, okay, but what is the real damage or what is the real problem that it is causing if one state is vetoing such decisions? And what I need to say is that it is probably the reason why there's no pressure on Hungary when it vetoes, or in any other member state on its vetoes, because the real cost of not forming a common position in these issues for the European Union is very small. And therefore, I think for Hungary to follow such a behavior or such a pattern, although I'm sure that if you look at quantitative numbers, who is vetoing, how many decisions, and how often in the European foreign and security policy, I don't think that Hungary would be an outstanding example. Yet in the actual cases, I do not see that there would be huge costs for Hungary or for the European Union not to make these decisions or not to make these statements. Whenever there is a higher cost attributed to it, we are also realists within the European Union, so we also see that then there's higher pressure from our peers within the European Union, and if there's high enough pressure, there is always a way for compromise. So what I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't attribute too much of significance to these matters, although they are vastly exemplified by I wouldn't use the word Brussels bubble, but the diplomatic circles, the Council of the European Union, the the representations, and the way how they interact with European media like Politico or some other like Brussels-based American outlets, which really like to see these stories building up, that there's the rogue country which is blocking the resolutions against China, blocking the resolutions against Russia, basically sticking out all the time. And again, I say data doesn't back it up. And I do not think that this is one of the top 100 most important issues in European foreign policy.
Thank you. Would anyone like to reflect on that? No. Then I would like to get back to the real topic of today's conversation, back to Japan and Japan's competitors. There are two questions regarding basically the same issue. One is more specific, the other is more general. I would raise them together, and unfortunately this will be the last question of today because we are running out of time. KDB Bank of Korea and Bank of China have affiliates in Hungary that have facilitating business and investment from these countries, but no Japanese bank is represented in Hungary. I don't know about the other B4 countries. Don't you think it is a disadvantage for Japan in the region, especially in Hungary? And that was a more specific question, and the more general is, currently, the presence of South Korea and China is getting larger due to their economic cooperation. Their accumulative contribution may surpass that of Japan in near future. Why one cannot foresee bigger contribution coming from Japan compared to China and South Korea, how can Japan increase its presence? How can Japan do under these circumstances? So maybe Professor Ohara and Tsuruoka.
Yes, thank you very much for the question, but it's difficult to answer about the Japanese bank. Yes, I've already known there is no Japanese bank, but Japan also can use the international banking network. So Japanese private companies can use the network itself. So I think Japanese private companies, what I say, has not felt about the inconvenience in the business in the Visegrad countries. But in the financial network, I hope the Japanese bank also has some influence in the this region. And I also understood the increase of the presence of South Korean Chinese business in this region. I'm visiting the Bratislava every year, and I'm always seeing the Korean language in the city, and many Chinese tourists in the Bratislava, but there is no Japanese characters, no Japanese, only a few Japanese tourists. Still, those kind of business is also important. But I believe the cooperation to develop the emerging technology is the most important in this period, because Japan, as a middle, Japan is not the major power, but so the Japan does not have enough budget to develop the emerging technology by itself, and also the human resources is also limited. And I believe the Japan and European countries and the Visegrad 4 countries can support each other to cooperate, develop the emerging technology. Japan and in the as a country in the Quad members, and has already decided to start cooperation about the emerging technology. So I hope we can start those kind of project with the European countries. Thank you.
Professor Tsuruoka, maybe?
Okay, thank you. As for banks, I have no idea how they decide where to be. But I think one of the important things and the biggest difference between China and Japan is that in the case of Japan, the government cannot force private banks to invest or to open a branch in specific countries. It's just impossible. So this is the way how we do business. So I remember that I think it was a couple of years ago in Tokyo, there was a V4 plus Japan dialogue. And I found it quite interesting because it was a whole-day conference on Brexit between V4 countries and Japan, and then there were various people from V4 countries talking about the Brexit as quite a great opportunity to pay more attention to V4, because the Japanese company, there are so many Japanese companies operating in the UK, and they are very much part of a global supply chain. And now the UK is out of the EU, then there is what we are seeing is a restructuring of a European supply chain. And then now the UK is out, then we need more places to be part of this a supply chain. And then in that context, there are some possibilities for Japanese companies to get more interested in investing in V4 countries. And that sort of voices, I found it quite encouraging. And I'm not sure, I don't quite have a concrete idea or the picture what have been taking place since then. But now the Brexit is a reality, and so I think the companies are seeing a different picture. So and in that different picture, I think the place of V4 I think has got a bit bigger. And just let me say a few words on the European foreign policy issues that we were talking about. I'm not actually advocating an introduction of a qualified majority voting for European foreign policy. What I'm just saying is that seen from Tokyo, the united Europe and a single European voice is something we want to see. And that's it. That's how you make foreign policy, that's something for the European Union to decide. It's not Japan's business. But having said that, what is important and what I'm a bit concerned about is that I don't think it's a good idea to make very bad precedent where China could believe that if you want to prevent EU consensus, then it's just okay to talk to one country or bribe one country or seduce one country or pressure one country. And then you can prevent EU consensus. And that's sort of a understanding. It's something that we need to prevent. So in that sense, we should not make bad precedents for Chinese sort of various activities in terms for the purpose of stopping EU consensus. And that's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. So I would like to thank all our panelists, Professor Ivana Karásková, Michito Tsuruoka, Bonji Ohara, and Dávid Szabó for sharing their views with us. And I would also like to thank the audience for their attention. I'm quite sure that this conversation will have an opportunity to go on because the world is changing very fast, and all these cooperations or all these economic opportunities that the two regions, East Asia and the V4 countries, can provide to each other are expanding. The economic significance and also the political significance of all these relations are growing. So there will be a lot of things to talk about in the future. So thank you again. You attended the event of the Institute of Foreign Affairs of Trade in Hungary. Thank you very much. See you next time. Goodbye.